This was a fun, Santa-adjacent movie fit for the holiday. Jesper, our point-of-view character, is sent to help establish a postal tradition and outpost in a town where greed, anger, and resentment had run rampant to the point of destroying any goodwill whatsoever beyond small family commitments. Outside of town, an old widower named Klaus has given up making toys when the loss of his wife destroyed his dreams of having a family. The love that Klaus had closed up was released on the town, revitalizing it and restoring it, simultaneously saving Jesper's job. If you've got Netflix and small children, even if they are just the small children you carry in your heart, I highly recommend this movie. Someone could write a book of philosophy and ethics based on this movie. Those who know me well know that I'm drawn to this movie because I identify with Klaus's loss of dreams and resignation from the world, and ultimately his redemption when he lets go of the depression that's holding him back and gives away what he had held so close for so long. I don't want to focus on that for this post, though. I want to take a moment to focus on something that most of those who evaluate the movie will either overlook or set aside as a meaningless plot element: Jesper's laziness. Our point-of-view character starts the movie as a lazy, good-for-nothing son of an aristocrat that lives off the wealth and prosperity of his father without giving anything back in any meaningful way. Jesper purposefully sets out to sabotage all attempts to secure him gainful and productive employment, so that he must be returned to the lavish life of his father's son. He's only able to do this because he was born rich. Had he been born poor, he would have to hustle and cheat to keep any sense of ease or comfort without putting in the work. It's easy to brush off someone like Jesper, but most of us are really the same. The way we go about it is situational, but we all seem to do things just a half step easier, even if it's a half step worse, unless we're going to be caught. I read about a study one time where they wanted to determine what the best lighting was to do the job in a particular factory. So they started setting the lighting level differently every day and measuring the results. The results were overwhelming. Productivity increased on the days when the ones running the study were present, regardless of whether they lowered the light, raised the light, or left it the same. The impact of being watched was so profound that it completely drowned out any effect the lighting would have, and the experimental procedure had to be changed so that no one knew when they were being observed. In my own life, I've experienced this. When I was working at a fishing rod factory, one of my jobs was lining up the guides on the rod. There were about 7 of us that rotated in and out of that job, but 2 of us in particular had flawless, 0 lineup errors, except when we shared a line. We both set out to find a way to prove that the one making the mistake was the other. Neither of us believed that we were doing anything any different on the lines where we shared from the lines we didn't share. Yet the fact and the reality remained: on the lines where we were graded and judged individually, we had 0 errors for weeks or even months on end, but the one line we shared would periodically have 1 lineup error at the end of the day. Except for 1 week when it didn't. We had 2 new lines of rods that were being pushed through, and in a last-ditch attempt to determine which of us was floating on the slack of the other, our supervisor, without telling us, divided up the rods so that I only got 1 line, and my coworker only got the other. It was a busy time of year, and it took us most of the week to figure out what was going on. But in that entire week, none of the lines that we lined up, including the line we shared, had any lineup errors. On some level, we knew we were being watched that week. Now, I know that I didn't consciously realize someone was trying to catch me or my coworker making a mistake until most of the week was over, but I did know that I was lining up a new product and that new products were under higher scrutiny. My coworker was similarly lining up a new product. We might not have put all the pieces together, but we did know we were under higher scrutiny at any rate, and acted accordingly. If I need any real proof of the times I can be lazy, I need look no further than the time I was on the email team for technical support, though. During my last few years working technical support, I had 3 job titles simultaneously. I was a technician, which I had been since the day I started. That meant that I was on the phones, answering questions. I was also an associate trainer, and my performance and results as an associate trainer was exemplary. I am proud and satisfied with all that I did as an associate trainer. And then, there was my time as an email support specialist. I learned to type when I was in the 7th grade. I made it my goal never to use a pen ever again. At one point, I could easily type 95 words per minute with no errors, and if I were willing to write out something that needed to be cleaned up later, I could bring that up to over 150. On top of that, I was an expert macro user and a proficient technician. I could write 5 email replies in the time it took my average colleague to do 2, given that they were simple. Once the problem became more complex, my solution time decreased rapidly, but even then I could often answer 2 in the time my colleagues could answer 1. When I realized that I was answering almost triple the emails as my colleagues and spending less time in email support than anyone else, I fell into the trap of using my email support time as unauthorized break time. It started out innocent enough. I needed to finish a report as an associate trainer, but I had used up all my associate trainer time for the week. Who would know? And it was something the company needed. Then I had a really hard call where someone was abusive and aggressive, and I switched to email support and took a breath before actually starting in on emails. Then I switched into email support just before lunch one day to grab some emails to answer after lunch, because I was so hungry that I was shaking and I didn't want to risk getting stuck on a call when I really needed food. Before long, I was slipping into email support in order to clear my mind. For months, no one noticed. Honestly, no one in management cared. My stats, even with that indiscretion, were in the top 5 of the team across all metrics. But then someone made the mistake of introducing me to YouTube. My next evaluation showed that I was spending an excessive amount of time in my email extension. I was flabbergasted, but my manager could point to the exact day when it had changed, and she suggested that it was a personal habit that had changed at that time. I couldn't think of a personal habit that had changed, but she had already noticed that I was in YouTube whenever she walked by. I had to enact a personal policy of never going to YouTube at work. And that's why some of my longtime readers who knew about my exploits as an associate trainer are just now learning about my role as email support. I had very little to be proud of in that role. No matter who you are, I am sure that if you dig down you can find a time when you knew no one was looking, when you were sure you could get away with doing the minimum, and so you did. Some of us, like Jesper, have learned from those times when we did get caught and have set out to correct that personality flaw. Others of us have either embraced that point of our personality or chosen to live in denial about how damaging it can really be. This hints in the direction of a concept that a lot of theologians struggle to put into adequate words. There are certain impulses within us that drive us to take the easy way, even when we know it's not right. Or they drive us to take the way that will make us look good even when we know we have glory to share. Or we choose to do something that will make us look good rather than something that will be objectively better, but will not come with the same accolades. There's something in us that aims at doing what's better for ourselves even when it's harmful to society at large. We'd do the long, hard, better way if it reflected on us directly, but since it doesn't, we'll do the short, easy way instead. Some parts of Scripture call this the flesh. So what can we do about that part of ourselves? I would like to hear from you. Have you ever had to overcome this tendency within yourself? What advice can you give? Have you seen this tendency overcome by someone else? What did they do? Let me know. Inquiring minds what to know.